Hey, this is Mr. V, doing a book review today for Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. Before I do my book review, you should know that I do a spoiler-free book review, so that's why I look down occasionally. I just have notes, so I don't give any spoilers away. So, Breakfast at Tiffany's by Truman Capote. The main storyline for this is you follow a unnamed protagonist, a male, and he meets a woman named Holly Golightly, and it just follows their life in New York City in the 1940s. So that's the main storyline for Breakfast at Tiffany's. Now, before I start my official review, I want you to know I've never seen the movie. It's a famous movie, but I've never seen it. And I don't know anything about it, so I'm not comparing it to the movie at all in any way. So I'm only reviewing the book today. So, the book, it definitely was an interesting book because I actually thought the beginning was pretty odd. I thought it was an odd beginning when it started. I was like kind of a little confused, or I just thought it was odd with what was going on. But it makes a lot of sense by the end of the book. By the end of the book, then it's like, okay, I can see why you did the beginning. So even if you find the beginning a little bit odd, make sure you stick through with the book. Because it definitely was, it wrapped it all up, which I'll get to in just a bit. But overall, I still thought this was a very interesting story. After you get past the beginning, you start to see it's a very interesting story, as it's basically just a story about relationship with friends, the good and the bad. Because, it shows like the friendship that the two develop, and about like the fun times they have together, and like the secrets they can share with each other, the camaraderie. But it also shows some of the bad that friendships can have in terms of like the arguments they get or the disagreements they get, and even like the feuds that they go into where it can become pretty bad and like there's big tension at times. So it shows all that, and it just shows like a portrait of the people who come in and out of our lives, as there's more than just those two characters. So it just shows that kind of story in there. And I think what made this a fun story was the characters, because I enjoyed the characters. I thought he got great characters because, the main guy, who is unnamed in the book, but he is just the typical like non-party type of guy. I would not say he's an introvert, but he's a typical like non-party type of person, just a guy trying to make a living. But the fun one is the woman, Holly Golightly. She is the fun one. She is basically like the kind of person you picture when you know that she's like a spoiled woman, good looking, where men are chasing after her and she's switching from guy to guy. But because she's so spoiled, she's very immature. And she's a type that's like, she's rude without knowing she's being rude. She's somewhat obnoxious. And she doesn't even know that. She's not meaning to say a rude thing, but she does. That's right, I say. She's rude without knowing it. And she's pretty bossy. It's again, that kind of leads to the immaturity because of how spoiled she is, especially with all these guys. So, I think it was the characters that made it a lot of fun. And there are also many spots while you're following them. There's many spots of like quick wonder where you wonder like, oh, wait, what's going on here? Or what's going on there? There's like not a plot twist fully, but like, oh, wow, what just happened? And within just a couple of lines, you'll start to all of a sudden wonder like, oh, what just happened in that story, or what's going to happen? And, that also made it pretty fun. And one of the biggest parts that was fun was there's a big twist partway through the book. Not the end, I'm not going to say the twist, but there's a pretty big twist partway through. And it's a very fun twist that makes you wonder even more. It makes you wonder about stuff even more. So that, that was really cool. And I think, just the way Truman Capote, the way he wrote it, he did a very good job. Like it was well written in that he had good dialogue between the characters. He sets the scenes very well, like the people and the settings. Not only like he sets the scene up to where you can picture it and envision it in your mind, but the areas in which he is setting the scenes are good, and the people he puts in those are also really good. And I'd say that he has a decent character development. Not amazing, but it's still decent character development. And I mean, it's a short book. It's a novella. So, there's only so much you can develop, but there's still decent character development because you do get to know the characters fairly well. One of the drawbacks, though, one of the things I did not like about the book was one area felt rushed. It felt rushed because he didn't do the relationship building wasn't super in depth. I mean, it could not be because there weren't that many, it wasn't that long a book, or it's a novella. So, it wasn't super in depth, but then some of the fights that they get into with these characters are acting like this is super in-depth relationship when it's why is there such a big fight? You didn't act like you guys were that big of friends or acquaintances. And then you get into this humongous fight. So that was the one thing I really did not like about the book, because then it felt like you were just kind of rushing it. And I thought that maybe he could have kind of fleshed it out a little bit more. But, that was one thing I didn't like. But, overall, I still thought it had a good end. I judge an end by many things. Is it, do you enjoy it? But also, does it wrap a lot of things up? And I thought he had a good end because it did wrap a lot of things up. And I actually thought the end was the best part of the book, because the end makes you think a lot more, and it makes you think back to the beginning of the book, which makes you think about the whole book. And that's why it made you really think back to the beginning. And that's why I felt the end was the best part. It was like a whole, I don't know, I can't explain it, but I thought the end, he had a good end overall. So I'm going to give it my official rating right now. Now, I always rate my books on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 is an awful book. A 5 is an average, and a 10 is phenomenal. To if it gets anywhere near 10, you should put that on your reading list, because I'm a pretty tough critic. So it's hard to move up even 1 point in my rating system, and a 5's average. So for Breakfast at Tiffany's, with a 5 being average, I'm going to rate this book a 6. It's a pretty solid 6. And I think it's a solid 6 because, it's a fun story about the relationship building with friends, the people that come in and out of your lives. But it does have some weaknesses. So, some areas feel rushed. I felt he could have fleshed some things out a little bit more. But that's why I'm rating it a 6. That I'd recommend that you guys go and read this at some point. I think it's still a fun read. But if you guys have any questions, comments, disagreements, please post it in the comment section below. I hope you guys click the subscribe button, as I upload multiple different types of book reviews all the time. But thank you for watching my book review today. This is Mr. V. Go enjoy reading.